Hello and welcome to a brand new series of Snooker Vodcast with me, Andy Goldstein. My guest today was the 2010 snooker champion of the world before going on to be a Triple Crown winner. He's known as the Thunder from Down Under, and he is, of course, Neil Robertson. Neil, how are you? Good to see you.
Yes, very good. Thanks, mate. Everything's going well here. We're, following all the guidelines and everything like we're meant to, unlike some of the people you've been taking snaps of in the park.
Yes, we don't like those people. Stay at home. Save the NHS, everyone. How are you finding not being able to visit a snooker club and hit a ball? Is this quite bizarre, or is it something you do in the summer naturally anyway?
No, usually you have time off in the summer anyway. So for me personally, it feels as though my summer's been kind of like sped up a month, where, we've missed the Tour Championship and the World Championship. But those tournaments have been postponed, looking to play them at the end of July. But it just feels as though how it would do at the end of my World Championship, where a lot of people think that you want to go on holiday, go somewhere, overseas, where, my ideal holiday is almost just staying at home, actually, because, many times, you go like a month basically with only spending 1 or 2 days at home. So it's actually quite nice to be sort of grounded at home and spending time with kids and Miller.
No, it's good to hear you're coping with it quite nicely, which a lot of people are at the moment. I know a lot of people are struggling, but it's nice to hear you're safe and well at the moment. Listen, before we talk about you and, of course, how you got into snooker, which we'll do in a minute, I love the fact you're in your man cave. And, oh, my goodness, look at all those trophies. So I can see over your left shoulder in the middle bit, you've got the World Championship, the Masters and the UK. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, they're just...
What else have we got
just
there?
Up there. Just there. I've got some trophies up there, like from China, the 100 Centuries in a Season trophy. First player to do that. I've got some sort of nerdy figurines. I've got a life-size Darth Vader there. I've got like Batman and Joker from Hot Toys. Got some trophies. The frames, which World Snooker make. Every time you win a tournament, World Snooker give you one of the frames. So yeah, I've got lots of things there. Actually, one of them up there, it's like a clay sort of vase. When we used to have the Wuxi Classic, the winner got a trophy made from an ancient master clay pot maker in China. They say it takes about a year to make those pots. And so every time that someone won the tournament in Wuxi, they would get a clay pot made, like a vase, whichever animal it was for that year. So that trophy there was like the year of the horse. So it's a really amazing trophy. And they told us not to throw it out or just keep it in the hotel room, because apparently they're worth like £5,000. So
wow.
Yeah, it sits up there very proudly.
I love the fact that they're all on show, because so far out the ones I've done, every snooker player is just in their lounge. No one has sat in front of all their trophies, and I'd much rather they all sit in front of their trophies. I adore stuff like that. Which is your most prized one? Is there, mate? Have you got in that group there the first one you ever won as a kid? Is that out on show or not?
No, they're all back home in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I must have probably about 50 trophies back home. It's kind of funny when I go home and my brother sort of shows me them or something. They're just all in the garage and loads of boxes and stuff like that. Yeah. So, got many great memories.
The first one. Get him to send you the very first one. You can put it next to the World Championship. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. The junior trophies in Australia are absolutely huge. They're so much bigger than what they are over here. It's kind of crazy, actually. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you then. Was snooker a big thing in Australia then?
Yeah, snooker was very popular. I think. Like Pot Black and stuff like that was really popular back home in the 80s. Jimmy White, Alex Higgins, these sort of guys, used to go out to Australia every year to play in the Australian Masters. So the popularity of the game was very, very good.
How did you watch snooker? Because presumably it wasn't on telly in Australia as much as it was over here. So how did you watch it?
We used to get the tape sent over of like the Masters, UK's, the Worlds. Right. Someone would record them on BBC and then they'd send them over. So the first match I watched was Stephen Hendry against Alan McManus in the final of the Masters, when Alan broke his record. I think Stephen had won it the previous 4 or 5 years. And the other owner of my dad's club was Scottish, and he obviously loved Hendry, McManus, and John Higgins. So we used to get a lot of tapes with those players, and yes, that's how I grew up watching their games.
How long after the game finished were you getting the tapes? Because it's quite a distance between England and Australia. So how long would it take?
Probably back then, probably would have been a couple of months at least. Yeah, for sure.
So you're getting a copy of the Masters like March or April time.
Yeah, probably something like that. Yeah, but I mean, because I was only 11 or 12, I didn't really know the result anyway.
No, of course, of course.
The internet wasn't even out yet. So so there was no way of knowing really.
It's mad. So what age were you when you sort of committed to snooker, where you thought, you know what, I can actually make a living here?
Probably when I didn't want to be in school anymore.
Right.
I think.
What age would that have been then?
I think when I was age of 14 or 15, I was looking for a way out of school. Really didn't enjoy it at all. Probably the education system wasn't the best, where the teachers kind of once kids started falling behind, they kind of let them fall over. Basically, it was that's like a subject for another day, I suppose. But basically, I really didn't enjoy school at all.
I just don't see how a 14 or 15-year-old growing up in Australia and wants to become a snooker player and chase his dream, how from there you get on a plane and decide to come and live in England. I mean, who came with you? How did that happen? Who paid for it?
Yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge, is that, like, okay, you want to be a professional snooker player, you leave school knowing that you could always go back to school, although in the back of my mind I was never going to go back. My idea was to have a full year off school and see how good I could get at snooker, and so I did that. The Oceania Snooker Championship, when I was 16, was held in Melbourne. By this time, my dad had sold the club and didn't have the club anymore. So the Oceania Snooker Championship was held there, and the semi-finalists, finalists, and the winner all got the pro ticket. So it was actually 4 places from Australia or Oceania.
Oh, wow.
And I got to the semi-finals. I beat Robbie Folvari in the quarterfinals 5-2. Robbie was probably considered the best player in Australia at the time. He was, well, apart from Quinton Hand, of course, who was currently sort of like top 32 in the world at the time. And Robbie was like former world billiard champion. He'd got to semi-finals before in world ranking events. So I was only 16 when I actually qualified, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, quite exciting time. 16-year-old turning pro. The funny thing is that I hadn't won an amateur tournament in Australia yet, so it was kind of out of the blue, really.
So let me ask you then, Neil, how do you go? And we're going to cover your career throughout this, but how do you go from dropping off the tour 3 times, from being a young kid and everyone looks at you and thinks you're an easy draw? How do you go from there, fast forward to 2010, to becoming the best player in the world? What happened? What was the defining moment? Hold on. What was the defining moment where all of a sudden it all just clicked and it all worked?
So up until from 16 to 21, I fell off the tour 3 times. When I was 21, I'd pretty much all but kind of like given up, fallen off 3 times. Realistically, how many times can you keep flying over from Australia to base yourself somewhere in the UK? So I was in the job centre in Melbourne. I was in the queue. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't get a job or anything like that. I was just, well, here we are, just start the dole and then, see where I end up. And I was in this queue and there was a lot of people arguing because they weren't going to get the dole check, or back home you had to apply for 12 job interviews before you could actually get paid. One guy didn't apply for enough job interviews, so they weren't going to pay him. So he started kicking off and swearing at everyone. And I was just thinking, oh my God, wow, is this going to be me every fortnight? I'm going to stand in this queue and this. And so I just turned around and left, and then just chatted with my mum and dad and that. And the World Under 21s was coming up in about a month in New Zealand, which is only a short flight from Melbourne. When I won that, I actually got an overseas wildcard pick, which was 5 out of 5 overseas players to qualify for the tour. I got one, Ding got one, and a few other Chinese players got one as well, I think. So then I've qualified for the tour. This is it. This is my last chance, right? Like, if I really, really want to make it. Steve Misford won the World Amateur the year before and had also qualified for the tour the same season. Joel Younger, a friend of mine, was already on the season doing pretty well. And so the three of us decided that we'd all rent a house together in the UK. So myself, Steve Misford, Joel Younger, all living in the house right next to the club. Joe Perry's coming in every day practicing. So we're all practicing with Joe, practicing with each other. And that's the kind of like base you really need of a group of players that are all really hungry to try and do well. And Joe would slaughter us every day in practice. Like, he was absolutely unbelievable in practice. He was top 16 player at the time as well. So that was the huge turning point that year, was when I got that last chance. And then Joe, moving to the same club that we were practicing at as well.
And of course, all that ended up meaning you became world champion in 2010. That must have been incredibly emotional for you and also your family who flew over for the final. Just explain, if you can, put into words what those 17 days were like for you, Neil.
Yeah, going in felt very good. Beat Fergal O'Brien, I think 10-6 first round. I think I beat Steve 13-4, 13-5, something like that. I beat Ali Carter in the semis, who was world number 2 or 3 at the time. I think 17-12, 17-13. And then Graham Dott in the final, who was playing in his third final in 5 years, 18-13.
When you look back at the World Championships and the UK and the Masters, which one are you most proud about?
But comparing the World Championship to the Triple Crown?
Yeah, if you like. I just wonder, when you look back at everything you've achieved, what are you most proud about? Is it winning one of those titles, or the fact you won all 3?
Yeah, I'd say winning all 3 for sure, because not many players have done that. There's only, I think Judd did, obviously winning the world, so I think there's maybe 10 or 11 who had done it. But I think at the stage that I had done it, I think I was maybe only the 7th or 8th player to do it. I think Selby, Sean and Judd have since gone on to join me in the group. So yeah, I would say definitely becoming like a Triple Crown winner for sure.
You're watching a brand new series of Snooker Vodcast with me, Andy Goldstein, and my guest, Neil Robertson. More from the Thunder from Down Under right after this. And a warm welcome back to a brand new series of Snooker Vodcast with me, Andy Goldstein, and my guest, of course, today is the Thunder from Down Under, the 2010 champion of the world, Neil Robertson. And Neil, before the break, we were talking about, of course, the highs in your career when you won the Triple Crown UK Masters and World Championship. But there have been quite a lot of lows as well. And you're not afraid, you don't shy away of talking about issues off the table. You've talked about, for argument's sake, you've been very vocal about your video game addiction. You've talked about the problems that your fiance has had with depression. Not a lot of people feel as though they can open up and tell other people about problems they've got going on in their life, especially if they're in the public eye like yourself. But it's something you're happy to do.
Yeah, I am. I think that when you're a known person, in the public eye, like a sportsman, for example, I think that you can use that as a positive to help other people who are maybe afraid to come out and actually talk about things. I think that what Tyson Fury did a year or so ago when he did that documentary talking about his struggles with mental health, with anxiety and depression. Watching that documentary, I felt as though I was watching Miller talk. He was talking about the exact same things, more or less, that he went through. She wasn't like substance abusing with drugs, but with anxiety, one of the big things people do is drink alcohol and stuff like that to help kind of like settle the anxiety down, which is what Miller was doing. And that was very tough to me personally to try and juggle that, as well as being one of the best snooker players in the world. And for a few years, for about 2 years, I was doing it without really talking about it or anything like that. And, we have some sort of very mixed results on the table, and, people not really wondering why. And obviously it wasn't myself struggling with those issues. But when you're trying to support someone through them, it's probably, in some ways, it can probably be worse because you feel helpless in that situation. And it took about 2 or 3 years to actually work out what was going on. What is anxiety? First of all, actually learning that she had anxiety, and then what is it, and what can you do to treat it? And so it was, so we went through some really, really tough times, especially when I'm away a lot of the time playing in tournaments. Went through a period of a couple of years where I was only really practicing about 45 minutes a day. That was all I could kind of manage before kind of making sure I can come home and just like help her through the day and stuff like that. And so it was really tough on the family, on Alexander as well. And now she is it's just a completely different person. And, I couldn't be proud enough of her for everything she's been able to do, which then gave me the go-ahead to actually talk about things publicly. And the response that I've got through people on social media has been absolutely amazing, the amount of people we've been able to help. And, I think, we've seen over the last couple of years, a lot more is done actually to help people that are struggling with mental health. It's been incredible, really. And when I started talking about it, it felt like at the time, it felt like I had the world on my shoulders. That much weight was on me. And then as soon as I started talking about it publicly, it all came off. It was like, it was just the biggest relief ever.
What about you? Because you did have a video game addiction, didn't you? You were spending far too much time playing video games and not practicing enough. I mean, how bad did that get for you, Neil?
Yeah, but I mean, it's sort of like related together because that was my, I had to spend a lot more time at home than what I would have liked. And so that was kind of like my escape with dealing with things as well. It's not always easy when you're there watching someone struggle so much. And so that was kind of like my escape to just, to get away from things. And some of the games are kind of like harmless, but, it got to the point where I was playing way too much.
How much? How much were you playing?
Oh, like FIFA, for example, that was the one. That was the killer. Because I'm so competitive, I was kind of like getting my competitive drug out of FIFA. And so I'll drop my son off at school and then come back and just be playing FIFA all day until it's time to pick him up. And really, I should have gone to the club. But I could have played that game, like, even when I've had, like, sort of times when I had, like, days off, I could play it, like, 12 hours straight, easy. Absolutely. Like, easily.
Do you play it now? Are you not allowed to touch it now? Or you don't go near it?
No, I don't play any kind of ultra competitive games. I just can't touch full stop because I just get too drawn into them. I put off more important things that I should be doing. And so there are some games I can play quite harmlessly. They're just good fun, just like any kind of normal game. But it's the games that really suck you in from the competitive point of view, which are very dangerous to play.
Well, listen, after, of course, you opened up, things started improving on the table for you. And even when we look at this season, you had a strange old start. You missed a flight in Latvia. You went to the wrong Barnsley and you played Ronnie in Shanghai. But you ended up having a great season. You played in one of the... Listen, I've been watching snooker since the early 80s. And I'll say it, you played in one of the best finals I've ever seen, Champions against Judd, that went the distance, 10-9. You were the winner. I mean, wow, that was brilliant to watch. What was it like to be a part of?
Definitely the best match I've ever been a part of, for sure. Judd would probably say the same had he been on the winning side of things as well. I think even back looking on it, he probably looks back on it as a fantastic match. It was, it was 10-9. It was 8 centuries made in the final. I made 5. He had 3 in a row against me. That's normally enough to kind of put a ridiculous amount of pressure on your opponent at any stage. And but I was able to sort of like go with it. We went toe to toe all the way through the final. And probably the most amazing thing is that up to 8 all, already an incredible standard. He pinched a frame off me to go 9-8 up. And then he's on 50 odd in the next frame. And now I need a snooker with 5 reds left. And I've potted the 5 reds, 5 blacks. I've got the snooker. I've ended up winning on a respot to make it 9 each. And then I've broke off. He's gone for like a long red in the decider and he's missed it. And then I've made 1-3-7 in the decider to top it off. And just an amazing end to a wonderful final. And a match that I'll always look back on for the rest of my career and with immense amount of pride.
And part And part of a great season, you won the World Open, you won the European Masters, beat you long without even dropping a frame. I mean, proving you're hitting the ball probably as well as you've ever hit it, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the past 18 months, I've won 6 major tournaments, and then usually during that period, that's enough to be probably the most dominant player in the sport. But Judd's won. I think he's won 10 out of 11 finals. I've won 6 out of 10 finals. So I've got to 10 finals. He got to 11, but obviously his conversion rate has been absolutely amazing. The only final he's lost was to me in 11 finals. And very happy with how I've been going. This season, I was really looking forward to the Tour Champs and the World Championship, but obviously they've been postponed.
Did you fancy the World Championships more than you have done for a long time because of your form coming into it?
Yeah, definitely. I think this year I thought it was going to take something really, really special to beat me, especially the form I was in coming in the latter half of the season. Obviously a lot of brilliant players in it, but I felt as though this year was going to be a really good year for me. Judd and I were in opposite halves as well, so that's kind of created quite a good sort of like story as well, that the two of us could get to the final. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully we can play the World Championships, although playing a World Championship at the end of July is kind of like everyone's starting fresh, so there's no one in good form or anything like that. It's going to be very interesting to actually see what happens.
Okay. If you did win another World Championship, you'd have to get rid of Darth Vader because you haven't got room.
Yeah. His helmet actually comes off as well. It's pretty cool.
Go put it on. Go and get it and put it on.
Right. There you go. How's that?
It. Yeah. Can I surprise you?
I'm your father.
No.
I am your father. Oh, that was cool. Oh.
Look at that. We're both sad people. We've got one each. Hey, Neil, listen, what an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time. I've really, really enjoyed our chat. It's been great.
Yeah, no problem, bud. Great fun as always.
Thanks, man. You take care, and we'll see you very soon. Hopefully sooner rather than later.
All right. Cheers, bud.
That's all we've got time for in today's podcast. Make sure you check out iTunes. They're available as a podcast to download, or keep watching Eurosport. There's loads more. In the meantime, thanks again to the Thunder from Down Under, Neil Robertson, and for myself and Neil. Bye-bye for now. Take care.